When my husband died suddenly in a supposed car accident, I was left to navigate the hollow silence of grief and the storm of decisions that followed. At his memorial, while still drowning in condolences and whispered platitudes, I stepped aside. For a moment of quiet, and that's when I heard it. His voice, clear and urgent, "Don't sign anything. Your cousin is behind this." My world tilted. The man I loved and trusted was gone, or was he? And now, the one person I had turned to for support, my charming, ever-helpful cousin, was cast under a shadow I couldn't ignore. That single sentence from beyond the grave unraveled a twisted web of betrayal, greed, and long-buried secrets that I never saw coming. What was my cousin hiding? What had I almost signed away? And how far would they go to silence me next? This is the story of how grief became suspicion, and how love refused to stay buried, hadn't even sat down yet. People were still arriving, hugging me with that pity in their eyes that made my skin crawl. Everyone said the same thing: "He was too young, such a tragedy, you're so strong." They didn't know I barely remembered how to breathe. My husband, Daniel, died in a car accident 2 weeks ago. That's what they told me. His car flipped off a coastal road and caught fire. They said the body was too damaged for an open casket. The phrase made me nauseous. I couldn't even say goodbye properly. At the memorial, I stood by the altar, trying to stay upright. My cousin Eric hadn't left my side since the moment the news broke. He handled the arrangements, spoke with the lawyers, even moved into the guest room to keep me company. I was too broken to question it. Daniel had always trusted Eric, even more than I did, stepped away from the crowd and went into the hallway. Just for a moment of silence. That's when I heard it: "Don't sign anything. Your cousin is behind this." I froze. The words weren't whispered, they were spoken. Crisp, urgent, and familiar. Daniel's voice. I swear to God, it was his voice. I spun around, heart hammering, expecting to see someone, anyone. But the hallway was empty. I clutched the wall to keep from collapsing. Maybe it was stress. Maybe grief was finally cracking me open. But something about the way he said it. It didn't feel like my mind playing tricks. It felt like a warning back. In the chapel, Eric found me. He looked concerned, like always. He placed a hand on my shoulder and said softly, "Hey, the lawyer just arrived. We can go over the paperwork after the service, okay?" I nodded, dazed. That was the first time I questioned anything. I hadn't even known Daniel had made changes to his will. According to Eric, Daniel had recently named me sole beneficiary of everything, including some kind of offshore account I'd never heard of. It felt off, but I had no energy to argue. After the service, the lawyer, some guy Eric claimed Daniel trusted, showed me the documents. I remember the pen in my hand, hovering over the signature line. And then Daniel's voice echoed again. Not from outside this time, but inside my chest. I put the pen down. "I need some time," I told them. Eric looked confused for a split second. Then he smiled, too quickly. "Of course. Whatever you need." That night, I locked the guest room door from the outside and took his laptop when he left it unattended. I don't even know what I was looking for. I just knew something was wrong. What? I found made my blood run cold. Daniel had sent an encrypted email to a private address the night before his death. The subject line: "If anything happens to me, start here." The message contained a single link, "Already dead," and a string of numbers. Coordinates, maybe. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Eric had said Daniel died on a spontaneous drive to clear his head. But what if he wasn't driving aimlessly? What if he was going somewhere, or trying to hide something? And if Daniel suspected something, why didn't he tell me? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Eric made pancakes like nothing had changed. He smiled too much. He asked if I'd had time to think things through. I nodded and said yes. But I was lying. I was already planning my next move because if Daniel's voice was right, and God help me, I know it was, then I was living in a house with someone who had something to hide. Maybe even blood on their hands, and the scariest part? Eric was watching me. I couldn't pretend anymore. After hearing Daniel's voice and finding that encrypted email, everything felt like a puzzle suddenly begging to be solved. My instincts, numbed by grief, were waking up. And they were screaming. I needed help, but I couldn't trust anyone around me. Not Eric, not the lawyer he brought, not even the so-called friends who showed up with casseroles and empty condolences. So I turned to the one place Daniel always kept secrets, his storage unit. He'd rented it 2 years ago and told me it was for old work files and backup equipment. I'd never seen inside. But that morning, while Eric was out on a suspiciously long coffee run, I found the spare key in Daniel's toolbox, taped beneath the lid like he wanted me to find it. The unit was cold, dusty, and silent. As soon as I stepped inside, a shiver crawled up my spine. It wasn't just the temperature. It was the feeling that I was about to uncover something he never meant for me to see, at least not while he was alive. There were boxes, folders, and an old laptop sealed in a plastic bag. I powered it on and waited. A video file sat on the desktop, labeled with a date just 4 days before the accident. My hand trembled as I clicked it. Daniel appeared on screen, sitting right there in the storage unit. His face was pale. His eyes tired and wired at the same time. He didn't greet the camera. He got straight to it. If you're watching this, something's happened to me, he said. I know how it sounds. I know you're scared. But you need to listen. He leaned in, his voice low. Eric is not who you think he is. Neither is this life we've been living. I've made mistakes, big ones, but I was trying to fix them. I found something. Something he buried years ago. And now I think he knows I found it. The video cut off suddenly, like it had been corrupted or interrupted. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. What had Eric buried? And why would Daniel record something like this instead of going to the police? Then a memory hit me like a slap. About a year ago, Eric had shown up at our door in the middle of the night. His clothes were muddy. His knuckles were bleeding. He told us he'd gotten into a bar fight, and Daniel didn't question it. But I remember the way they looked at each other. Something passed between them. Silent, charged. The next morning, Daniel was gone for hours. When he came back, he was quiet. Distant. He never mentioned it again, and I never asked. But now, the memory burned with new meaning. I left the unit with the laptop and the video. Back home, I locked my bedroom door and backed up everything onto a drive I hid in my shoe. I didn't know how much time I had. But I knew this: Daniel had been trying to tell me something, and Eric had been trying just as hard to keep me from hearing it. That evening, Eric made dinner and poured wine. He acted normal, too normal. Like he was trying to play the role of the grieving cousin, the loyal protector. But I could see it now. The small slips. The calculated kindness. The way he always found reasons to be in the room when I made phone calls, and then he brought it up again. The paperwork, he said softly. The lawyer called. He said he needs your signature by the end of the week. Otherwise, there might be complications with the estate. I forced a smile. I'll sign it tomorrow. His eyes lit up for half a second before he masked it. Good. I'm glad. I lied again. I had no intention of signing anything. That night, I searched Daniel's encrypted files. Most were corrupted. But one folder opened. It contained receipts, photos, and a scanned letter addressed to someone named Victor, a name I didn't recognize. The letter was dated from 5 years ago, and it talked about a debt being cleared after the incident by the lake. What incident? What debt? I didn't know what scared me more, that Daniel had been hiding so much from me, or that Eric might kill to keep it that way, I decided to leave. Just for a few days. Somewhere Eric couldn't follow. Somewhere I could breathe. And think and figure out what to do next, but when I tried to call a cab in the morning, my phone was dead. Not just out of battery, completely bricked. No signal. No power. Like it had been tampered with, and then I found a tiny GPS tracker taped under the driver's seat of my car. Eric knew I was planning to run, and now, he was one step ahead. I stared at the tracker under the seat for a full minute before I could move. My mind refused to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Eric wasn't just watching me, he was tracking me. Planning for this moment. Anticipating it, and I had walked right into it. I drove to the only place he wouldn't expect me to go, my father's old cabin by the lake. I hadn't been there in years. The last time Daniel and I visited, we fought. I don't even remember what it was about, only that it ended in silence. But the cabin still had running water and electricity. And more importantly, no cameras. No watchers. It was a long drive, and I kept checking the rearview mirror the whole way. Every car that lingered too long behind me made my throat tighten. But when I finally arrived, the air felt different. Heavier. Like the trees remembered something I didn't. Inside the cabin, I dusted off the furniture and opened every drawer, every closet, like answers might be hiding in the wood. I unpacked Daniel's laptop and the drive, searching through every remaining file. Most of them were indecipherable documents. With code names, strange dates, bank statements that led nowhere. But then I saw it. A scanned police report, partially redacted, dated 8 years ago. The headline stopped my breath. Unsolved, body found at Northwood Lake. Foul play suspected, Northwood Lake. This lake, I read the details. A man, late 30s, found floating near the southern shore. No ID. No witnesses. No family came forward. But the most chilling part was a note scribbled in the margin, in Daniel's handwriting. Eric knew him. They argued that night. Said. It was handled. It wasn't. That night, the one Eric showed up bleeding. My stomach turned. I left the cabin and walked down to the lake. It was quiet. Still. But now I saw it differently. I could almost see the ghost of that night, Eric and this unnamed man, shouting, struggling, and then silence. Maybe Daniel was there. Maybe he saw it happen. Maybe that's when Eric realized Daniel was a liability, and all these years later. Maybe that's why Daniel had to die. I sat on the dock, shaking. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears had dried up weeks ago. What replaced them now was a slow, burning rage. My husband had been trying to protect me. To warn me. And I had been grieving under the same roof as the man who might have murdered him. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of tires on gravel. I ducked down instinctively. A black SUV pulled into the driveway. Not Eric's. New plates. Tinted windows. I couldn't see the driver. They didn't get out. They just sat there. I grabbed Daniel's drive, my phone, and a flashlight. I slipped out the back door and into the trees. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they'd hear it. The underbrush clawed at my legs, but I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the neighboring property, a summer home that had been abandoned for years, hid under the porch. Watching from a distance, eventually, the SUV backed out and disappeared down the road. Waited another hour before I moved back inside the cabin. I found a hidden panel in the bedroom closet. My father used to keep old tools there. But behind the loose board, I found something I never expected, an old metal box. Inside were letters. All addressed to Daniel. None of them opened. They were from a woman named Celia. The earliest letter was dated almost a decade ago. The most recent was just 6 months old. Daniel, I know what Eric did. And I know you've been covering for him. But I can't live with it anymore. If you don't come forward, I will. There was an address in Colorado. A phone number. A name I had never heard in my life, and yet, it was the first real thread I had. I called the number. It rang once, then disconnected. I called again. Same thing. Was she dead? Was she running? Did Eric know about her? I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside felt like a signal. Like they were closing in.by. Morning, I made my decision. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't run forever. I needed to bring someone in. Someone I could trust, and I knew exactly who. Detective Rachel Monroe. The only person Daniel ever spoke highly of outside our circle. He once said, if anything ever happens to me, and I'm not around to explain, find her. She's the only one who doesn't owe Eric a damn thing. The question was, would she believe me? I found Rachel Monroe in the most unexpected place, behind the counter of a rundown bookstore 2 towns over. Her badge was gone. Her posture was too straight for retail. And the second I said Daniel's name, her smile vanished. We sat in the back room, between stacks of unsold thrillers and forgotten romance novels. She didn't speak at first. Just watched me. Studied me. I told her everything, the voice at the memorial, the hidden laptop, the lake, the letters from Celia. I didn't hold anything back. When I finally stopped talking, she leaned forward and said just one thing, I've been waiting for this. She opened a file from a locked drawer behind her. Inside were newspaper clippings, old photos, surveillance notes. At the center of it all was Eric. I couldn't prove anything back then, she said. But I always knew something was wrong. Your husband tried to help. He came to me once. Told me there was something rotten in his family, something tied to Eric. He was scared, but not for himself. He said someone was watching you. That if anything happened to him, it wouldn't be an accident. I nearly broke. All this time, Daniel had been protecting me. Even when I thought he was hiding things, he was actually shielding me from something far worse. Rachel showed me a photo. It was the man from the lake, the one in the police report. She called him Miles Kramer. He'd worked with Eric once on a private security job overseas. After that, he went off the grid. Until his body turned up near my father's cabin. I think Daniel found evidence tying Eric to Miles's death, she said. That's probably what got him killed. The pieces were clicking into place. Daniel must have discovered something big enough to scare Eric into silencing him permanently. And now, Eric needed me to sign those papers to tie up the last loose end, Rachel warned me. If you go back now, you have to act like you know nothing. Let him believe he's won. Stall. We'll build the case, but we need time. I agreed. I didn't want time, I wanted justice, but I understood. I returned home that evening, every muscle in my body tense, my mind rehearsing every word I'd say. Eric was waiting in the kitchen, wine poured, music playing low. Like he was trying to set a mood. How was the drive? He asked casually and needed the air, I replied. Cleared my head. He studied me for a moment. Then nodded. The lawyer's coming by tomorrow. Just a few signatures. Then we can. I'll move on. I smiled. About time. We toasted. I pretended to drink. He watched me closely. Like he was looking for cracks. I gave him none. That night, I sent Rachel the scanned letters from Celia and a photo of the tracker I'd found. She replied immediately, Celia's name is real. I've seen it before. But not as a whistleblower. As a survivor. A survivor. Rachel sent over a court transcript from 11 years ago. Eric had been investigated for an assault at a corporate retreat. The victim? Celia Vargas. Charges were dropped. Witnesses vanished. Records sealed. But Celia had tried to speak. And she was buried for it. Daniel must have found her. Maybe he tried to help her. Maybe that's why she started writing to him. But if she had something that could bring Eric down, something real, she'd be in danger too. Rachel was already looking for her. But I couldn't wait. I needed to make a move. Something to shake Eric. To make him doubt my loyalty. So I told him, I'm pregnant. The lie came out so smoothly I surprised myself. His reaction was immediate. A flicker of something behind his eyes, panic? Calculation? Then, the mask. Wow. That's unexpected. He was good, I'll give him that. But he wasn't good enough. The next day, he didn't call the lawyer. He called someone else. I heard him in the hallway, speaking low, sharp. She's stalling. I think she knows. We may need to move the timeline up. Timeline. I recorded the whole thing and sent it to Rachel. Why now? We had enough for a deeper investigation. But it still wasn't enough to prove murder. Not yet. We needed Celia. Then, late that night, I got a message from an unknown number. Just a location, nothing else. It was in Colorado. A tiny town near the mountains. I showed it to Rachel. That's her, she said. She's reaching out. We made a plan. I'd go alone. Quietly. One night, one trip, but before I could pack, Eric slipped a key into my hand. Let's take a trip, he said. Just us. One last getaway before life gets complicated. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a threat wrapped in a smile. I said yes, there was no point pretending anymore. Eric had made up his mind. I was either going to sign those papers or disappear before I could stop him. The trip was his way of controlling the narrative. Of taking me somewhere no one would find me, and writing the last chapter himself. So I let him believe it, packed light. He chose the route. A remote cabin rental upstate, far from towns or cell signal. To reconnect, he said. His smile was tight. His eyes never left me. I pretended to be tired, distant, distracted by the pregnancy lie I had no intention of maintaining. That seemed to satisfy him, but what he didn't know, what he couldn't imagine, is that Rachel had someone on the inside. A former tech specialist. The same person who helped me decrypt Daniel's files was now tracking Eric's burner phone through a shadow GPS embed. Every move we made, Rachel could follow. And she had backup waiting 10 miles from the cabin. She promised she wouldn't act unless I gave the word. All I had to do was survive long enough to speak it. The cabin was exactly what I expected, beautiful on the outside, hollow and dead on the inside. No reception. No cameras. Just us. He cooked dinner. Tried to laugh. Like old times. Told me stories I knew were lies, waiting to see if I'd catch them. I didn't. I played dumb. I played grateful. I even let him pour the wine, but I didn't drink it. Instead, I asked a question I'd been preparing for days. Do you think Daniel would have forgiven you? If he were here now? His hand froze mid-air. Forgive me for what? For hiding the truth, I said. For pretending to care. For whatever happened at the lake. He set the glass down slowly. You're tired, he said. We should talk in the morning. I stood up. No. Let's talk now. He moved faster than I thought possible. In a second, he was in front of me, his hands gripping my arms, not hard, not soft. Controlled. Measured. You don't know what you're saying. I think I do. Then you're making a mistake. I looked him dead in the eyes. Then make me disappear, like you did to Daniel. Silence. Heavy. Alive. Then he let go. I never meant for it to happen like that, he said, voice low, shaking. He pushed too far. He got obsessed. He was going to ruin everything. Our family. Everything we built. You didn't build anything, I whispered. You stole it. You silenced the only person who ever believed in me. And now you think I'll let you do it again? He stepped back, face pale. You think anyone will believe you? You're grieving. You're emotional. You're wired, I said, tapping my shirt pocket. He blinked, the cabin. It's bugged. His face contorted, not in anger, but in disbelief. As if the idea of me outsmarting him was the real betrayal. You little. The door burst open before he finished. Point two agents, followed by Rachel. Guns drawn. No shouting. No chaos. Just calm, clinical efficiency. Eric didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just looked at me like I'd stolen something from him, but I hadn't. Taken it back at the station. They read me a list of what they'd found in his files: offshore accounts, blackmail material, the unedited video Daniel had tried to encrypt. And, buried in an old safety deposit box under a false name, the original police report Celia had tried to file before Eric's lawyers buried her testimony. Tea was over. For now, Rachel drove me home. She said, there's something Daniel wrote in one of his old emails that stuck with me. What? He said, if something ever happens to me, don't mourn me too long. Just listen to her. She's smarter than she knows. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat tightened that night. I walked through my empty house. No more Eric. No more fear. Just echoes, but in the quiet, I thought I heard it again. His voice. Gentle this time. You did it. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe not. All I know is, the next morning, I called Celia, she picked up, and now we talk every week. So here's my question for you. If someone you loved whispered from beyond the grave, would you believe them? And more importantly, would you risk everything? To find out the truth, let me know.